But this is actually a big ruling against what you worry about Democrats trying to do in the future. Any authoritarian, really, but Democrats trying to do in the future.
Is use the office of the president for exacerbated powers.
To raise money for the Treasury, essentially.
Yeah.
And specifically, this is the dangerous part. And Republicans, while they're upset that maybe Trump took a little bit of a hit today, they tried to argue when there was a law that said the president, the executive branch, could regulate something, that actually conveyed them the power to tax as a form of regulation. Now, I want you to think about that just for a minute and all of the things that the executive branch has the authority to regulate and all the agencies that we have. And ask yourself, do you also want that to mean that since they've been given the authority to regulate these things, that means also they can impose any arbitrary tax of any amount for however long they want at any time for any reason to regulate that thing? In this case being importation of goods.
Now, that doesn't mean Trump can't throttle importations.
Oh, he could shut it down if he wanted to.
Exactly. He could say, well, okay, well, instead of a tariff, then China, we're just going to accept 50% less of your imports.
No, he could.
Don't even send your boats.
He could set a limit to how many imports we're going to take.
Exactly.
In fact, specifically, and this is kind of the dumb part of the whole thing, and I agree, like this is sort of the dumb part about it. He can't do the tariffs. They could impose like a regulatory fee of $1. Like they could say, well, you want to bring in that ship from this country, it's $1. That's a fee. Just straight up flat fee, bring it in here. What they can't do is say, we're going to impose a percentage based on the value of goods that you're bringing in as a tax to bring money into the U.S. Treasury to pay for things. They can't tax. Congress has the power to tax. I've seen a lot of arguments online and people upset about this today. When you go back to the founding of the country and they gave Congress the authority to tax, the Congress the power of the purse. You know, we think about taxes now, we think a lot about, of course, the income tax or corporate taxes. But if you go back to the kind of taxes they had at that time, like when they said Congress has this authority to tax, what was the main tax at that time that they would have been talking about?
Tariffs. Literally.
That was their main funding source.
That's how the U.S. made money for years.
These people who literally
Until
had
the Civil
at
War.
the top of the, not that they didn't have other kinds of taxes, excise taxes, and you can go with whiskey rebellion and all kinds of stuff like that. But the main source of raising money for the government, the main tax, was tariffs. And they said Congress has this authority, not the president. And they had to have been specifically talking about tariffs because that's the main source of income that all of them would have been thinking of at that time. Because there was no income tax. There weren't all these other taxes that we have right now. Some of them, not all of them. Recognizing the taxing power's unique importance and having just fought a revolution motivated in large part by taxation without representation, the framers gave Congress alone access to the pockets of the people. Let's see, federal.
And there's a reason for that, by the way, because the people elect their representatives, and if they start to do things like tax your income, which I think most of the founders would probably be flipping boats in the ocean about, then you could change that by voting your representatives out of office.
Yeah, you could. When I hear that, I'm like, yeah, I guess you can. I don't know. It's pretty tough to do.
Doesn't seem like we've gotten there.
They required all bills for raising revenue to originate in the House of Representatives, and in doing so, they ensured that only the House could propose the supplies requisite for the support of government, thereby reducing all the overgrown prerogatives of the other branches.
That seemed to work out well.
Yeah. Listen.
We never thought the government would work together to enrich themselves, but they did.
They probably also, well, they had to have thought about it some. And listen, Constitution's not perfect. They did a pretty good job overall. Not perfect. It has allowed the government to grow to the point it is right now. The main thing that allowed the government to grow to the point it is right now is the people. We've got different kinds of people here, and they've decided that they want that security more than they want liberty. And I think that's the biggest problem. They did not vest any part of the taxing power in the executive branch. The whole power of taxation rests with Congress. The president asserts the extraordinary power to unilaterally impose tariffs of unlimited amount, duration, and scope. In light of the breadth, history, and constitutional context of that asserted authority, he must identify clear congressional authorization to exercise it. IEEPA's grant of authority to regulate importation falls short. IEEPA contains no reference to tariffs or duties. The government points to no statute in which Congress used the word regulate to authorize taxation. And until now, no president has read IEEPA to confer such power. And there's a lot of people talking about how regulate will, this obviously, in importation, well, this obviously refers to tariffs or duties. They would have just said that. Did you guys see how many words? Remember when I read what IEEPA said, the relevant text? Well, you think they didn't have time to put the word tariffs and duties in there? Think they ran out of character spaces?
I don't know. They're using Colbob back then. They might have.
It's possible. But no, they would have just put it in there. They put every other word in there. They would have added tariffs and duties to it. This one is super important, and we kind of already talked about it. Many statutes grant the executive the power to regulate. Yet the government cannot identify any statute in which the power to regulate includes the power to tax. The court is therefore skeptical that an IEEPA...
What's
an
weird,
IPLO,
though, is that plenty of executive power, they issue fees.
Yep.
Which, by the way, if a fee is coming from a government, it is a tax.
It's a tax.
They've just found a way to redefine that. So the problem is he needs to not call these tariffs. That's the real problem.
Yeah. I mean, and
he just
they
needs
ruled,
to start imposing fees.
and you know, when it comes to like Obamacare, where they essentially ruled that that those fees or penalties were not taxes. You know, I'm not saying it's like this is clear cut and it all makes perfect sense, but in legal definitions, yes, the fees and the fines imposed by the regulatory bodies are not taxes.
All you have to do, I mean, so right now there's a Department of Homeland Security fee. There's a 9/11 fee. Like, just look at your ticket when you buy an airline ticket. Mm-hmm. It lists it out there. You have Department of Homeland Security and 9/11. Like, these are all like, they're not taxes. They're fees that the regulators charge. Which that go back into their budget.
Which they were, and listen, not arguing in favor of all this stuff at all. They were granted authority by Congress when those things were created to do those things.
Oh yeah, that was in the Spy Act.
And they're
Oh wait, no, it wasn't called. Yeah. It was called the Patriotic Act. The Patriot Act.
While taxes
for your country, Nate.
While taxes
sign this bill for your country
may accomplish regulatory ends, it does not follow that the power to regulate includes the power to tax as a means of regulation. Now, agree or disagree and want the tariffs or don't want the tariffs, that's the gall darn good line to find in a Supreme Court opinion that might protect your ass in the future. And that's what a lot of people should be taking from this. That is good. There are other avenues. I thought
this was dumb bleep.
Yeah, actually, I don't know what the super dumb part about this is. It's just this happened today, and we have to talk about it. Yeah, but I didn't really pull in any response. So it's
well, we could probably generalize.
Everyone assume how dumb the MAGA response
we
is.
could generalize the MAGA response to this.
Well, let's make this the dumb then. Since Congress gave the executive branch the power to regulate something, that obviously means they can tax it arbitrarily at whatever amount they want to tax it. Well, that's dumb. And you wouldn't want them to do that for anything else other than this right now, taxing American companies
like
that are bringing things in from other countries.
They don't have to do any gun regulation. They'll just add tariffs.
Tax the hell out of them. Just do that.
It'll make 1,000% tax.
ATF,
make it impossible for you to purchase.
ATF, you know how many ATF regulations there are? Why don't they just add a 200% retaliatory tax? I'm just going to, add something like that to it, because this is an emergency.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
And trust me, MAGA, you guys don't want that type of power to be centralized in a president, because we're going to have a Democrat president again.
This is where I think they really hit the nail on the head with the fact that this IEEPA specifically did not convey the power to tax by using the word regulate, because it says importation and exportation. A contrary reading would render IEEPA unconstitutional. IEEPA authorizes the president to regulate importation or exportation, but taxing exports is expressly forbidden by the Constitution. In Article 1, it is like listed out that you're not going to tax exports from America. But in this act where they say that it gives, where some MAGA people are saying it gives the president the power to tax these imports, well, that would also convey the power of the president to tax exports at the same time, which is expressly unconstitutional. So that can't be what they were telling everyone the president had the power to do. And by the way, we already kind of did this. This is a tweet that I posted out earlier. So the EPA regulates, well, they're talking about emissions with power plants, factories, cars, oil and gas, farms, all kinds of stuff. The ATF, firearms, magazines, braces,
silencers,
whatever, bump stocks, all sorts of stuff like that. FDA, approval, labeling, manufacturing, medical devices, supplements, FCC, broadcasters, cable, internet providers, the Department of Energy, the fuel economy, even light bulbs or appliances and the efficiency of your appliances, Health and Human Services, hospitals, doctors, insurers, nursing homes, all sorts of stuff. So they've got the power to regulate those things, which means basically any new arbitrary taxes could be imposed on anything that they want.
Tweet.
This is a tweet. Yeah.
Looks like an article
from me.
That you wrote.
So they should be free to impose any new arbitrary taxes to anything that they want for however long they want to fight any perceived emergency that a Democrat president has declared in the future, a climate emergency, a gun violence emergency, any kind of thing that they want to declare as an emergency. And now we're going to tax all of these things because, well, we were given the power to regulate these things, and to regulate means that you can tax the hell out of it. And so therefore I'm going to do it.
Here's another problem. We can call this a problem on both sides. Everyone wants their president to have the most amount of power ever as long as he's in charge.
Yep.
And when there's a Democrat in charge trying to do some of this stuff, MAGA will be screaming that this is unconstitutional.
It doesn't say tax, it says regulate.
Yes. Probably the same way in which the Democrats are screaming that Trump doesn't have this power. So they're probably celebrating the Supreme Court decision. But if Joe Biden was doing this, they'd be really upset at Trump's Supreme Court.
Yeah.
For taking Biden's, enumerated presidential power away. It's like both sides are dumb. You're both dumb.
Both being very dumb right now.
This is why principled liberty matters.
Well, it's why by the way, it's why things keep getting worse and worse. Any party that's in power, they decide that their guy, like what you just said, should have as much power as we can possibly give them. Like, short of this person going to prison, we want them to have as much power as they can possibly have, that the courts will allow. And then the next people do that too. And then the next president does that too. And their people say the same thing. And they keep doing it over and over again. And then we end up here in 2026.
I love what you have on the screen right now.
What do I have?
Kavanaugh's dissent.
Oh, yeah.
I'm reading this and I'm going, oh, I see what he did here. I see exactly what he did here.
Oh, you think he's winking while he's saying it?
Yes. Kavanaugh's dissent basically just gave the Trump administration exactly how you pass muster at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
He says, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That is because numerous other federal statutes authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs at issue in this case, albeit perhaps with a few additional procedural steps that IEEPA as an emergency statute does not require. And just in case you're wondering, I will literally give you the chapter and verse of where these exist, Trump and your administration. Those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1968, and I'll tell you the section. Section 232. The Trade Act of 1974 is sections 122, 201, and
301.
And 301. And he's like, I'm just going to give you the book.
It is funny he listed this. Like, I don't know why this needs to be in here, but they're aware of these because some of their tariffs are already under these.
Yeah, but to have a Supreme Court justice give you the roadmap is quite funny.
I think we covered most of the things I want to cover on this. Don't worry, everyone who's worried right now that American companies are not being taxed hard enough. that he's going to find a way to do it. And it's just going to take a little bit of time. You might have to suffer through a brief, 3 to 9 month period of those American companies that are trying to get cheaper products so they can sell cheaper products to you, paying less taxes. And I know it's going to be difficult for everyone listening right now who is super excited when those people are getting taxed, but you're going to have to suffer through it. It could be through the bulk of this year that you will have to suffer through the reality that American companies are paying lower taxes. And I'm sorry, that's going to be tough on you. I'm really sorry for you right now.
Yeah, what does the left do in this situation?
Oddly enough, because it's against Trump, the left is really excited about it. But as I said, this whole thing should be looked at backwards. The left just got a massive blow to things they would want to do in the future by declaring climate emergencies or gun violence emergencies and stuff like that.
Taxing American companies.
Yeah. And yeah, any
on
of
their
that
imports.
stuff. And so they actually just got a massive blow, but they're happy right now because Trump just got ruled. And basically everyone knew this was going to happen. I mean, this has been predicted by everyone. That's why the market has kind of barely reacted to this. They're like, yeah, figured this is going to happen, and now we're going to switch to the other tariffs. And
we have really smart lawyers too.
Yeah. The only flip side is, are they going to have to pay refunds to people? Because now people have been, get this, they've been unjustly taxed, illegally taxed, Charlie. A bunch of these companies have. And now the government could end up being liable to pay them refunds back for the taxes that they paid. And I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. And I brought this one up just to make fun of it real quick because this person says the Supreme Court screwed the country. Now the U.S. has to pay back over $150 billion. I was told the amount we've taken in was like twice that much, but I don't know. Maybe only $150 billion through the IEEPA tariffs. I don't know. Now the U.S. has to pay back over $150 billion instead of giving Americans $2,000 stimulus checks, because those were the two options.
We paid higher prices.
Yeah.
So do we get a refund? That's
going to be the funny part. This is going to be a boon if they were to pay refunds. It would be kind of be pretty good for some of these companies, because they don't exactly, unless some other people sue, unless we sue somehow. The companies could have charged the higher prices to pay for the tariffs and then end up getting that money refunded back to them. And then do they have to give it back to all the customers who paid that extra amount? I'm not sure. Or is this even going to happen at all? We don't really know. All right, so that's number one, the tariff thing. So number two, while we're talking about the Trump administration, there's been a little bit of a fracture this week. And this one concerns MAGA and MAHA. I want to bring your attention to a matter. The matter concerns a chemical called glyphosate. You might know it by its brand name. It is the active ingredient in Roundup. And so you probably have heard of Roundup before. I've definitely heard of Roundup before. I've been awash in much Roundup throughout my life. There's two things going on here. The first one, I think people are not as correct in how they're criticizing Trump because of the executive order. But then there's also a provision in the Farm Bill, which the House will be taking up next week. I'll start with the executive order. This executive order is promoting the national defense by ensuring an adequate supply of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides. So we're going to use the Defense Production Act, which we need to just go ahead and repeal that act. I'm sick of it getting used for stuff. And there's a part in this executive order which gives immunity to the companies that make these glyphosate-based herbicides. That's not a good look at all. What you guys may not know or may know is that there have been many lawsuits against Monsanto because they didn't adequately label or let people know the risks. And I believe it is it non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I think is what people have developed. And
I remember you used to play on piles of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was a leaf pile.
If this gives you cancer, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys how I'm going to die. For those of you who don't know, I grew up on a farm, and I think my brother's in the group right now too. And what I would just hope is that everyone's very careful around these chemicals. I think everyone should be very careful. I definitely was not careful around this, and I don't know if anyone in my family is careful around it, but I used to just accidentally spray the stuff into the wind and just take in just inhale big old globs of it. Like it was a health supplement that my body needed.
And that's why he doesn't respond as fast.
A lot of lawsuits, and they paid out a lot of money. They've paid out billions of dollars to people. And there have been efforts in states like Monsanto or Bayer has gone around, and they've tried to essentially give immunity in different states to these companies so people can't sue.
It's worked.
In a couple states, they've actually got these immunity provisions put through.
By the way, how smart was Monsanto to sell this to Bayer? How did that deal work out? Why did
Bayer buy this?
I have no idea.
I don't, it was clearly obvious this is what was going to happen.
Did maybe they thought to offset something?
Or maybe they thought that they were just going to pay out, some of the lawsuits, and then they're going to own this super critical chemical that's vital to national defense or whatever is in this executive order. And so maybe they make money off of it in the long run. In the executive order, a lot of people are saying Trump signed an executive order to give immunity to the glyphosate manufacturers. And that's not what the executive order does. It does give immunity, but it gives immunity to them on contracts, because using the Defense Production Act is going to force them to prioritize government contracts for producing things. And they could end up getting sued by other people who they already have contracts with if they can't fulfill orders or if they take longer than before. And this specific immunity has to do with giving immunity on those contracts. I don't agree with the Defense Production Act at all, but I just wanted to be clear on that. The thing you should be upset about, super upset about, is the Farm Bill, which is coming up into the House next week. And this Farm Bill does specifically give immunity to these glyphosate manufacturers. And it will shut down not the current cases, but any cases in the future for people who are saying that this caused harm to them. And there's been a lot of money paid out so far. And you might think these are like frivolous lawsuits, or like ambulance chasing lawyers going out there. No, there's some dirty stuff that Monsanto pulled. But in this Farm Bill, there's a nice little summary of some of the sections here. Section 10205, this provision blocks states and local governments from requiring any warnings beyond what the EPA approves, shielding companies from liability. 10206, this provision stops cities and counties from enforcing their own pesticide rules, giving all regulatory power to state and federal authorities. 10207 declares that using pesticides exactly as EPA approved is automatically legal and overrides other environmental protections that might require permits. 10211 forces the USDA to share pesticide use data with EPA and allows buying commercial data while bypassing some federal paperwork rules. So the lawsuits have had to do with labeling. And what they've essentially said is, well, as long as you did exactly what the EPA says you need to do on the labels, then you've got immunity from liability. And so, yeah, the lobbyists for these companies have done a good job getting this stuck into the Farm Bill. And that's exactly what's happening. And by the way, if you don't vote for it, it means you're anti-Trump and you're anti-MAGA and you're just trying to hurt Trump.
And you hate farmers.
Yeah. I don't know how, but somehow that's going to be the case. But look at this. Let me give you a couple examples of what Monsanto did here. So there's actually a study that they put out. Pretty crazy. It kind of reminds me of that Painkiller show. In 2000, a paper was published in a peer-reviewed journal that reviewed the evidence regarding the safety of glyphosate-based herbicides. The paper concluded, under present and expected conditions of use, Roundup herbicide does not pose a health risk to humans. In 2017, 17 years later of this stuff being used by people like many in my family, it was revealed that the article was ghostwritten. Its actual authors were employees of Monsanto.
Imagine that.
Despite this information, the journal left the paper unretracted. One might expect they did eventually retract the paper. That's what this headline was saying right here. There's also internal emails. All this stuff can be found if you just Google the Monsanto papers. And Monsanto's strategies for whitewashing glyphosate.
Was this leaked, by the way, by WikiLeaks or something?
No, I think it came out in some
Discovery?
lawsuits.
Okay.
Yeah, in Discovery. Monsanto's strategies for whitewashing glyphosate have been revealed in internal emails, presentations, and memos. Even worse, these Monsanto papers suggest that the company doesn't even seem to know whether Roundup is harmless to people's health.
Now, I know this Monsanto file release was Monsanto file. See, I know. I get it was important.
Yeah.
All right. But what's the Dow at?
You know, Trump actually said the Dow's at 50,000 in his speech about the tariffs today.
So that's dumb, number one.
He went through,
That's
I
no
didn't get a
joke.
clip of it or anything, but he said the Dow recently hit 50,000, the S&P 7,000, the NASDAQ, whatever, in his speech about the
Can't
tariffs
make
today.
this stuff up. So you know that came from him when Pam Bondi. What is this? See this? I told you this is the best TV.
That's good.
It's the best.
It's good
It's like
stuff.
the best version of reality you could conjure
All
up.
right, I said we make it through 5. I think it's going to be 3. Quote, this is from an email. You cannot say that Roundup is not a carcinogen, meaning it causes cancer. Monsanto toxicologist Donna Farmer wrote in one of the emails, quote, we have not done the necessary testing on the formulation to make that statement. This email, sent on November 22nd, 2003, is one of more than 100 documents that the U.S. court ordered Monsanto to provide as evidence. And so it's like all of these cases, the plaintiffs have won because they bring up these Monsanto papers and they say, like Aaron Brockovich style, you guys knew this was dangerous and you hid it, or at least you actually never checked to see if it was dangerous. Turns out it is, and you hid it from people. And you lied. You ghost wrote an actual peer-reviewed paper and passed it off as science for people. And so they end up losing every case. The people, or they settle every case, essentially, is what's
And
mostly
speaking
been
of, just a
happening.
side note, you know, they say trust the experts.
Yeah.
Who are the experts?
Whoever is,
I mean, these were alleged scientists
they were scientists.
in a peer-reviewed journal.
Yeah,
That's the
but
highest level.
Sometimes you have to look and see whose name is on their paycheck. You know, that's kind of an important thing. So moral of the story is, it's just wild. Like, all that's going to be left of this entire coalition that was put together for 2024 are like the diehard obsessed MAGA people, the always Trumpers, opposed to the never Trumpers, the only Trumpers, or the always Trumpers. That's all that's going to be left. You keep doing stuff like this. If they actually pass and sign a bill that gives it, I mean, this is something people have been working on for decades. This has been a central thesis of the MAHA movement. People like Monsanto are boogeyman number 1 or 2 when it comes to MAHA. And you go and you give them immunity from any of their liability. And by the way, if this, you know, I just checked now. I went to Grok on this, and I asked if this bill, this specific bill, would have been in effect prior to all of the current lawsuits. Would any of these lawsuits been viable, like in court? Would it have been possible? And said no. This gives immunity to them because all of those lawsuits use like improper labeling, and so based on the different states that they're in, and so Grok, according to Grok, says no. None of these lawsuits would have gone through at all. They've got total immunity. So all of these, even though it's not going to affect the current lawsuits, shuts off all the future ones if it goes through. And by the way, if you don't vote for this, it means you hate Trump. Or it means you're a Democrat or something. You know, you pick the word. That's what it means. Because Trump's probably going to push this. And so if you don't vote for it, then that's on you. That's your problem. Number 3 is just called Dumb Democrats. There's a few clips here, and Democrats are doing a weird thing right now. I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know if they're trying to look like the sane party, the non-extreme party, the nice party of normalcy. But on multiple occasions now, there's been Democrats suggesting a couple things, like J.B. Pritzker saying, like, well, I've never called Donald Trump Hitler, and Nicole Wallace saying, I don't think any Democrats called Donald Trump Hitler. That's an actual quote going around on the news, them speculating that no Democrats have called Trump Hitler. And there's another one going around where yesterday, I believe it's yesterday in a press conference, a reporter asked Caroline Leavitt, why does the president think that multiple people have called him racist? What are you talking about?
Where would he get that from?
What do you guys talk? And so they're doing this weird, I want to call it gaslighting, but normally gaslighting's smarter than that. And here's the Caroline Levitt thing. Like, this one's so obvious. Everyone who hears this has to be like, well, what are you talking about? Literally. This is all we've been hearing since like 2015.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Their question. And yesterday in his statement about Jesse Jackson, the president said, despite the fact that I'm falsely and consistently called a racist by the scoundrels and lunatics on the radical left, Democrats all, it was always my pleasure to help Jesse along the way. Where or when does the president believe he's been falsely called racist?
You're kidding, right?
No.
I will pull you.
Now, the question was specific. Where does he believe he's been falsely called racist? So there's a way of, kind of implying there, well, the times he's been called racist, that was accurate. So here's the Nicole Wallace clip. I hope this isn't the one that's got the crazy music in it. Okay. I hate when they throw in music. Here's J.B. Pritzker and Nicole Wallace.
I haven't suggested that Donald Trump is Hitler. I wouldn't say
I don't think any Democrat has. I actually, and I think it's a.
What did she just say?
What are you talking about? Guys, I don't care that I just don't like seeing people lie. I don't like seeing people, the term gaslighting has been overused and we use it a lot. But what else is this? What are they talking about? Why are you can someone explain this to me? Why they're all of a sudden acting like, what do you mean? Calling Trump Hitler.
Yeah.
What is that? We haven't done that. That's crazy.
In fact, I haven't seen any Democrat do that.
Never seen any Democrat.
Wait,
Trump Hitler.
Did it even happen on the debate stage? Am I making that up? I'm pretty sure it even happened on the debate stage.
What debate?
With Joe Biden or Kamala Harris.
I don't remember specific. I think Kamala answered the question in a town hall, if I'm remembering correctly, that had to do with Hitler. I don't remember exactly how she worded it. And there's plenty of clips going around. As you guys are aware, people have been calling Trump Hitler for a long time and calling him racist all the time. I have no clue what they're doing. There's quotes of J.B. Pritzker calling him Hitler or like Hitler. I guess if you say, well, this is kind of like Hitler, I guess that means you didn't call someone Hitler. I don't know. I don't know what the case is. Gavin Newsom chimed in with some dumb stuff also. Remember, this is just dumb Democrats for number 3. So Ted Cruz had this post in this video where he says, Gavin Newsom is historically illiterate. We break down his attacks on law enforcement on Ted Cruz's podcast. So Gavin Newsom is historically illiterate. Gavin Newsom responds with Ted Cruz calling a dyslexic person illiterate is a new low, even for him.
What does that have to do with?
I guess he means I guess if you wanted to make yourself into a victim, which Gavin Newsom needs to do because he wants to run for president, but he's like a super rich and powerful person, and he's in with all of the rich and powerful people, but he wants to be like this anti-Trump progressive kind of person. And
he doesn't wear masks.
But he never gets the opportunity to be a victim. And so I think they've been looking around for ways that he could have been victimized, and they found this one where he says he's historically illiterate. And I don't think that means he's one of the most illiterate people in all of history. I think that it means he's illiterate on the subject of history. That's how I read that. But unfortunately, Gavin Newsom's retarded, and he didn't get it.
I think a better message would have been historically ignorant.
Yeah.
But also illiterate means maybe he doesn't read about history.
Did anyone know that Gavin Newsom was dyslexic?
No.
Anyone know that?
No.
Who cares? Dude,
although
you're rich, you're the governor of California, you're not a victim. Shut up. No one cares.
Yeah, and dyslexia doesn't really even mean that you can't read something and understand concepts.
Although I don't know, maybe it does in this case. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I need to explain some.
It's like, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't be the governor of California or try to run for president.
Yeah, just stop. AOC had some stuff to do. She does 2 annoying things in here. One of them I can excuse because honestly, I had to pull out a map and look. I made the same assumption. She also does the thing where she switched her accent because she said a specific like Spanish word or whatever. So here's a clip of her.
Venezuela, for example, it is not a it is not a remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean that we can kidnap a head of state and engage in acts of war just because the nation is below the equator. And
all right, so honestly, the most annoying part about that, which we've already talked about plenty of times in the past, is that she decided to switch up her accent when she said the words Venezuela and Maduro. And I honestly do not get it. I don't know who this is trying to appeal to at all. Who's looking for this? Who is it that's listening to you speak? And when you decide to use that accent on those words, which, by the way, I happened to listen to Dave Smith earlier in the week, and he made a great point too, or it was Robbie who made the point. People tend to only do this with Spanish, and they just do it for those specific words and then go right back to your normal accent. But no one does it with other words from other languages that we use that are like in usage in the United States. There's plenty of words that we say that could be German or Italian or French or whatever. And no, imagine trying to navigate a conversation where you had to switch into the accent of that nation when you said a word that originated them in Germany or something like that. Or because you were taught, I'm going to go with my friend Maduro and have some fettuccine. Like that's just, that'd be ridiculous.
Ciao.
Who are you playing to?
Also,
who wants this?
How are they going to tell who's a gringo and who's not? They can tell by your accent.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're fluent in Spanish unless you learn the accent. They know whether or not you're from there by the dialect.
And the other thing, she's out there doing this foreign policy stuff. And I'll excuse this one because I did not. I'll make a fool of myself right now. I would have never thought anything about it when she said that Venezuela was below the equator. I would have never thought about it. But luckily, the internet exists and plenty of people pointed out, because I guess they just are experts on where the equator is, that Venezuela is actually above the equator. I didn't know that. I had no clue. I pulled up a map to fact check it because I thought maybe it was an improper community note that was going on the post. Sorry. I don't sit there just studying this stuff. And then we've got Bill Maher, who's out there making this point this is really after the EPA changed some of those regulations. Here's his clip.
Doug Burnham, he's the Interior Secretary. Listen to this, the way they all line up behind this nonsense. He said, CO2, carbon, was never a pollutant. He said, when we breathe, we emit CO2. Okay.
First off, the main thing I want you to pay attention to here is his smugness in the way that he delivers the line. And it's a great representation of how a lot of these people are all the time. The smugness in which he delivers this joke. And then what you'll hear if you haven't heard is that he completely, I guess, forgets that there's a difference between CO2 and CO, like carbon monoxide. The poison that will kill you if you were to inhale your exhaust fumes from your car. So here's a clip.
Doug Burnham, he's the Interior Secretary. Listen to this, the way they all line up behind this nonsense. He said, CO2, carbon, was never a pollutant. He said, when we breathe, we emit CO2. Okay, Doug, you know what? Let's try this little experiment. Tonight, when you get home, go in the garage, close the door, turn the car on, and let's see if carbon is a pollutant, okay?
So that's not the same.
It's not the same type of carbon
thing. I mean, they're like CO2. They're
literally different elements.
The letters and then the number after the letter, it makes it a different thing. Okay, and the fact that two letters are together, okay, and then there's a number after them that has an indication that that's a specific thing, and then there's other things that come out like as a byproduct of your exhaust, and carbon monoxide is a pretty dangerous thing. Could be just minutes, an hour, or whatever, kill you. There's not as much that comes out of our cars now, thanks to Obama's EPA.
Yeah.
But not anymore. Trump's making it to where we can go out on our own terms in our garage with the car turned on.
It's not going to take as long to unalive yourself as it did under Obama.
I was curious exactly what all the gases were that came out of your exhaust. And yeah, the pollutants, less than 2%. According to Grok, less than 2% carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and unburned hydrocarbons. And those are the ones that kill you. And it's just a small portion of those gases. So be careful. The next thing, this came from the live group, thanks to whoever sent this over. Seattle gig worker law was supposed to boost pay. It did, and until it didn't, if you can imagine such a world. It is always so fun to go through all of these things where they're going to say it's a minimum wage, or in this case, it's like a minimum payment for getting a delivery for people. And it's going to be so great for all of those workers. And this is what people need because they're getting exploited by these capitalists or these gig workers. They just can't make it. And the whole thing with gig work drives me nuts when people try to alter that. The whole point of the gig work is that you can do work when you want for as long as you want and go make money. If it's not worth it to you, then you don't have to go do it. You really don't have to. And by the way, when you decide not to do that, other people can come in and do it. It's like one of the closest things to a free market we had in the U.S. for a little bit before all of these cities and states and like unions got their hands on it. It was a very good representation. And so Seattle, they passed a law, and there's been a study. And the National Bureau of Economic Research put out some of the information on that. They start off on this study saying minimum wage regulations that raise pay rates above competitive market levels often result in rationing as the quantity of labor supplied to the market exceeds the available job opportunities. I love hearing that from the National Bureau of Economic Research. Yes, that is true. That is the case. I want to go into some of the results of this. We find that while highly attached drivers, it's like people who are doing this often, like as their source of income, who were exposed to the reform, benefited from higher total earnings per delivery task after the reform. Of course, they benefited from higher earnings per task because that was mandated. But what changed? We'll see. This increase was offset by a decline in the number of tasks completed per month. Beginning in the second month after this was implemented, the decline in the number of tasks per worker corresponded to the decline in the aggregate number of tasks completed in Seattle. Strikingly, combining both margins, we find exposed workers experience no increase in total monthly earnings after the first month following the policy implementation. That's after all the people who were using these apps saw that they were more expensive. And then after a whole bunch of other people who weren't in gig work decided to go jump into that field because they were minimum payments for these things. We highlight that despite the decline in tasks completed, exposed individuals experience an increase in monthly total base earnings. That's base earnings. That is what was targeted by the policy, but it is fully offset by the decline in tips that people were receiving. So once people saw that they were getting, whatever this higher base pay was, people stopped tipping. And actually a big portion of people's income was coming in tips, not in the form of their base pay. And this is actually equal people making either the same or less. Now, there's plenty of charts and graphs in this thing. I'll run through them real quick. This is the average pay per task. As you guys can see, the average pay per task goes up a bunch. There's a big jump at the time that they implement this. Average tips per task, though, you can see correspondingly drop, flat line after this goes into place. And one of the things that they point out here is that without strict barriers to entry, any increase in pay per trip will be offset partly by the entry of additional drivers. So if you've never done gig work before, what you see is when the prices are higher, it'll entice more people to come into that gig economy. And they actually do this like with surge pricing for Uber and all that. I know it's to, make a bunch of money for the company that barely makes money or whatever. But the big thing that it does is it entices drivers to come out. It's a supply and demand mechanism. And what this actually did was it created like this higher pay, this higher base pay, which drastically increased the supply of the drivers, so much so that it outstripped the demand of people wanting to pay that much. So let's see, trends in delivery tasks. What you see in here is that there's people who never did this before that come into the market right afterwards. And then when you see average pay per total task, that's going up. And then this last one right here, effects on delivery earnings. This black line here in the middle, that is the important one. What you see is that within 5 months after the policy implementation, their earnings had actually gone down. This is the baseline earnings here in the middle. This is plus or minus the baseline earnings. This is when that went into effect. And here it pops immediately afterwards. More people come into the market and less people are using the apps. So it drops down immediately. And right now, or as of the time they did this, people are actually making less money after they have gone through and doubled the pay. So good job, Seattle. I want to give you guys a hand. I really appreciate them, by the way. I really appreciate you guys for giving us all of these examples, but not like directly ruining my life in the process. It's fun to watch these and to see these studies and to see these results from afar. I'd rather just see them on the internet than not see them in my own daily life. So, and yes, we've got a Washingtonian here in the group, and I do appreciate the sacrifices that you are making living there so you can see firsthand just how dumb all of these things are. That was number 4. Oh, that was number 4. This is number 5. So many big topics today. Glyphosate. I mean, we barely scratched the surface on that whole thing. Tariffs. That's a pretty big one, And now we've made it to the Jones Act. Well, let's just barely scratch the surface of the Jones Act for a dumb bleep. That'd be good. The Jones Act coupled with California being dumb at the same time. It's like not just the Jones Act. It's California being ridiculous with their victim, Gavin Newsom, up there. This is from the New York Post. Desperate California shipping oil from the Bahamas using bizarre loophole as the state grapples with highest U.S. gas prices. Now, first off, what we got to say about California, just to get out of the way, they could do a pipeline if we're going to do a pipeline, something like that. They could stop having their own stupid blend of gasoline. They want to do that. They could stop making it impossible for all the refineries to operate, things like that, stop raising and imposing costs on them if they want to do that. They're just going to buy gas from the Bahamas instead. And specifically, they're going to buy gas from the Bahamas that came from Houston. So, I guess they're still getting it from America. It just has to go to the Bahamas first. Why does that have to go to the Bahamas first? That sounds dumb, doesn't it? California is increasingly importing gasoline through the Bahamas, a workaround to a 106-year-old U.S. shipping law that forces domestic fuel shipments on the costly American vessels. More than 40% of the gas California imported in November was routed through the Caribbean, a record high, which comes as drivers in the state are paying an average of $4.58 per gallon, the most in the country. Gas refined along the Gulf Coast, primarily in Texas and Louisiana, is first shipped roughly 1,100 miles or 1,300 nautical miles to Freeport in the Bahamas, where it's stored at large hubs before being re-exported. Can we someday question a law where that is leading to Houston shipping gas to the Bahamas, so then California can have the gas shipped from the Bahamas to California? Can we question whether or not this law is a good idea? Because this is not the only time it gets used. It's used very, very often. Here we go. From there, tankers travel another 4,000 to 4,500 nautical miles through the Panama Canal and up the west coast of Los Angeles or San Francisco. In total, the voyage spans roughly 5,000 to 6,000 nautical miles, depending on the ports involved. Typical tanker speeds 12 to 15 knots. The journey can take 2 to 3 weeks. The added leg builds extra shipping, storage, and handling costs into wholesale gas prices, which are ultimately passed on to consumers. While routing fuel through the Bahamas can still be cheaper than chartering scarce U.S. flagged tankers, the detour adds time, complexity, and exposure to volatile global freight rates, all of which can put upward pressure on pump prices in California. It's a nice little map of where this thing has to go. And yeah, by the way, maybe we just need some pipelines, or California should stop destroying their own industries in the state. Stuff like that. I don't know. Different stuff like that. There's other stuff they could do. The indirect route is used by suppliers to sidestep the Jones Act. The 1920 law requires goods transported between U.S. ports to travel on U.S.-built and U.S.-crewed ships. There are only about 55 Jones Act-compliant tankers worldwide, compared with thousands of foreign-flagged vessels, making direct Gulf Coast shipments to California prohibitively expensive. Chartering a foreign-flagged tanker has historically been cheaper than using Jones Act-compliant vessel. Yeah, obviously, that would be the case. And this act, which is going to, protect domestic manufacturing of ships, going to protect American jobs, it has led to us having the amount of compliant vessels being cut in half over the last 20 or 30 years. It's just too expensive. And 55 compliant tankers worldwide. All of these costs, these are not like some kind of mythical import cost that gets charged to the foreign country or anything like that. That's not what this is. This is not some kind of mythical tariff that another country pays. All of these costs get passed on to us. Specifically, in this case, on to the people of California. But this is the case for so many things. It's really bad for people who live in Alaska and Hawaii and Puerto Rico. Really bad for them. And I don't think it's worth it. I think we should get rid of it. It also leads to us using more trains and trucks, things like that, than we otherwise would, causing issues with infrastructure inside the country, using a lot more of that infrastructure than we would need to, spending more money on that infrastructure than we would need to. It costs 5 times as much to build a ship here in the U.S. And this has cost America billions and billions and billions every year. And then it's been here since 1920. Absolutely ridiculous. Deep dive on the Jones Act someday. I read a lot about it today, actually. And it's, 106 years old. Pretty crazy. A real quick one here. This is from Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch for number 6. You guys remember the Twitter files? That was fun. That was a fun time. So Tom Fitton says, Judicial Watch sued to find out how much the deep state Biden FBI was paying Twitter, now X, to censor and spy on Americans. Yeah, they would actually be able to get paid for each one of the things. They got paid for their time for doing the bidding of the FBI, of Biden's FBI. That's pretty crazy. So Judicial Watch was like, hey, why don't we figure out exactly how much the FBI, the DOJ, paid Twitter to censor Americans? I think that'd be a great thing for us to find out. I'd be fine with that. Kash Patel's FBI and Pam Bondi's Justice Department told a federal court that we shouldn't get even summary quarterly totals of the payments because it might expose FBI law enforcement secrets. Unfortunately, Chief Judge Boasberg, who was just a radical Democrat plant, who's he, an Obama judge or what? I don't know who the person is that put him in power. Really bad guy. We need to remove him from the bench. But he agreed with the DOJ and told them that they can't have the information. They can't even get summary quarterly totals of the payments. We don't have to get, what if we just don't get the detailed payments? How much, to whom, for what specifically? What if we don't ask for that? What if you just, let's just do it, break it down. Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. How much did you guys pay them? That's going to expose FBI law enforcement secrets? Yeah. Isn't that the whole point? Isn't that what I think that's what we're trying to expose. But what I'm wondering is, why does this Justice Department care about that? Why would they not want to throw Biden's DOJ or Biden's FBI under the bus? I would speculate, as we found in the Twitter files, that the first Trump administration was also asking for things to be taken down before he was out of office the first time. And well, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to bring up anything right now either. Musk says that they're not going to do anything like that, but I don't know. I don't know what could get brought up in court. I don't like those secrets. I think we should find out about them. Number 7, speaking of dumb stuff, because it's dumb bleep of the week, here's number 7. I wanted to target specifically the low IQ arguments I've heard against Thomas Massie. And we're going to keep seeing more of these arguments, more and more of them as that election gets closer and closer. And honestly, if there's one thing I want for 2026, if there's 2 things I want for 2026, number 1, I don't want anyone that I know to die. Number 2, I want Thomas Massie to win his primary. That will be a very happy day. Not so much that I care a lot about like Thomas Massie, the person. Massie will be fine. He'll be okay. But I care about the idea. I care about how we clearly have one guy in Congress who's like, hey, this is what the Constitution says. This is how limited the power of the government is supposed to be. And this is what it's like to hold your own party responsible when they do things that you disagree with. I don't know if you guys have ever had that feeling, but I do. Like, I feel more responsibility because I'm more on the right, obviously, than being on the left. I feel more responsibility to call out things that the right is doing that is wrong, because it's like, some of those people are my people. And then it's like with Trump, well, I voted for Trump. With Massie, I would imagine he's like, well, I endorsed Trump, and it was a news story and everything. And so I think holding your own people accountable, holding their feet to the fire, is an important thing to do. Just my opinion. That's how I feel naturally about it. I feel more of a responsibility to call out things that are done by the people that are closer to my side. I'm always calling out the people on the other side. Always doing that. But I'd be a hypocrite if I don't also call out things for people that are on my side. I don't want to be a hypocrite. So we're going to keep seeing more and more of these arguments. This one comes from Ed Galrine, and there's a couple dumb things in this. It's going to talk about Massie voting with Democrats, whatever else, not being a team player. I'm going to cover some of these things, but here's a news clip. Ed Galrine and Andy Barr, I think, are doing a campaign event together, and both of the people there were super excited to see them, for sure. But here's the news story.
2 high-profile Kentucky candidates for Congress and U.S. Senate who have joined forces in their mission to unseat Congressman Thomas Massie. Political reporter Isaiah Kim Martinez reports tonight from Campbell County, that's northern Kentucky.
They say they're in lockstep with the Trump agenda.
To work with this president to save this country.
Republicans Andy Barr and Ed Galrine embracing each other at a joint campaign event in Wilder of northern Kentucky. It's our first time seeing them together since Barr, the Lexington congressman running for U.S. Senate, chose not to support his longtime Republican colleague, Congressman Thomas Massie.
His desperation is only exceeded by his dishonesty.
Instead, Barr endorsed Massie's opponent, the Trump-backed Galrine of Shelbyville.
If there is one issue, one specific policy issue that you differ from Thomas Massie the most, what would it be?
Oh, this is easy. voting with the Democrats with deeply flawed logic.
In an interview with me at the event, Gallrein was critical of the way his opponent at times goes against the president's wishes.
He's no Republican. If he had the courage of his convictions, he'd just go ahead and declare libertarian and move on.
So the whole point of that argument, which, I'm sure the interview was longer than 2 minutes or whatever, but Gallrein posted this out too, and they're all super happy about it, so whatever. The whole point of that interview is like, or that answer is voting with Democrats, or not voting with Trump, or not voting with Republicans. And this is a very low IQ argument, and people continue to make it. Now, first off, when you say voting with Democrats, I've tried to explain this before, but there's a difference in voting with Democrats, really, like you are in agreement with them all the time. And like you guys happen to be voting the same way on something. Like you're not exactly with them. For instance, Democrats aren't voting against Trump because they're super concerned with the power of the government. It's not what they're voting on. They're not concerned with the spending on that thing. They don't really care about that. They don't really care about the Epstein files, of course. None of them said a word about it when they had total control. They don't care about these things. They actually just care about being against Trump all the time. And so if you imagine there could be a scenario where Republicans are doing something that is stupid, and it's legitimately stupid, and it legitimately goes against the Constitution or the spirit of the Constitution, or it increases spending, refuses to cut spending, or it adds new powers to the government that the government shouldn't have. And imagine, if you can imagine that kind of wild scenario, that Republicans would do that. Now, if Democrats are going to vote against that, they're going to vote against it not because they care about the things. They don't care about the things that are in there. They're going to go against that because they're just going to go against Trump and Republicans all the time. But there could also be a scenario where someone who swore an oath to the Constitution and made campaign promises decides that they're not going to vote for that either, and they don't care what party put it up because they swore an oath to the Constitution and they can't do that. Or they think that we spend too much money and they're not going to do that. That's not the same thing as voting with Democrats. This idea of going against Trump, that's weird cult stuff, all right? I've heard Massie say in the past that there's two different forms of TDS, There's the one where you are against Trump at all times, no matter what he's doing. He could cure cancer and you'd be against it, And then there's the other form of TDS where Trump can do no wrong and you are with him at all times. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it was like a Democrat policy that Democrats were pushing just last year and everyone was against it. And Trump says, we're going to do this thing. And everyone's like, yeah, Trump, that's what we're going to do. That's the other form of TDS. So there's a lot of people that are afflicted by this thing. All right, I'm going to move on to another post here because it's about time to go. About time to get out of here. It says he should go ahead and declare himself libertarian, and that's fine. I wouldn't recommend it to Massie. I would just stay a Republican and just be what Republicans are supposed to be. I think that'd be a good idea. AF Post posts out the Massie donor map shows heavy reliance on Democrat donors in deep blue and blue-leaning areas to support his campaign. And all it is the Massie donor map in areas where there's a whole bunch of donors. And then you circle those areas, and it turns out that those are heavily Democrat areas. There are also areas that are heavily populated. And so when you're showing the donor map of someone, statistically, you're going to get more donors from areas that are heavily populated. And there are, in fact, people who aren't Democrats who live there also. For instance, I donate to Massie every month, and I am in a county and in a city that is Democrat, and I'm not a Democrat. Like, that's a super dumb argument for anyone to make. And you compare that to Gallrein's donor map. There's no comparison really. Okay. Cat Turd still doing the thing where he's posting out that Thomas Massie's on the Epstein list and acting like Cat Turd is also not on the Epstein list. We talked about this on Monday. It was something that happened over the weekend. You can go back to Monday's episode and listen to that if you want to. it's like super low IQ stuff that drives me nuts. I would love for people to just make the argument. We've got people here in the group that probably make the argument better than any of these people are. This is important politically. Yes, it's not perfect. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, or play the long game. Make sure you can stay in office so you can do good later on. Take a win, even if it's not as much as you want. Play the game a little bit more so you can be there to continue playing the game. There's all sorts of critiques or strategy ideas that you could give Thomas Massie. You might be right, you might be wrong, but at least it's an honest argument. All of these arguments are coming from people who honestly are just hypocrites, and they know they're hypocrites, and they can't really call Thomas Massie out on any of the specific things, because the things that Massie is calling for or voting for are things that those people supported not that long ago. Whether it's forcing the government to release the Epstein files, which everyone wanted to do, or cutting spending, or getting rid of the not funding the Department of Education, or getting rid of the kill switches on cars, or cutting out the funding for all of these programs that are used for fraud, or for DEI, or for funding abortions, or anything like that you want to name. They can't call Massie out specifically on the items. And so all they're left with are these really dumb, just low IQ posts about how he's a Democrat. Massie's a Democrat because he wants to spend less money. What a stupid argument. Does anyone hear what you're saying at all? And then this one. I kind of said this just a second ago, but this person says they're a fan of Massie, but he's an awful congressman. Politics, especially when you have the majority, is a team activity. If you can't or won't help the team advance the ball, you need to go. Well, there is an assumption not found in evidence in that statement, and that is that the team is trying to advance the ball. All I see is that there is a team who willingly, intentionally, let's stay in the sports analogy, let's stay with football. I just see a team that willingly, intentionally loses yardage all the time. Sometimes they'll intentionally fumble it back to the other team's end zone and let them recover it so they can score instead. They'll do that. They're always just losing yardage. Hardly ever advancing the ball. And what they'll essentially come up and say, like, here's our plan. We've been losing 10 yards intentionally each play. We just kind of refuse to do anything, and it's easier to go back there. We've got all these people in front of us right here. Let's just go back there. Here's our plan. We've been going back 10 yards. Instead, this one, we're going to compromise. We're just going to go back 1 yard. How about that? What if we just go back 1 yard? And we won't fully fumble the ball. We're going to keep the ball, but we're just going to lose 1 yard intentionally. And then if you don't want to do that, if you're like, I think actually we should go forward. Why don't we try and advance the ball? How about we try and go that way? It could be a little bit harder, but we should actually go that way. That's kind of the whole point of this thing. And you're like, you're not a team player, traitor. That's the argument a lot of people are making. Okay. I'm probably gonna call it at, I'm gonna have to call it at 7. Is that what I just did? 7? I think I just did 7. Let's call it at 7. Sorry. It is time. It's time for me to call this and get going. I will talk about the other things on Monday. It won't be a Dumb Bleep of the Week part 2, because we're only doing like 3 live episodes a week right now. And then Josh is putting out a really good episode every week, at least. This week he had like 3. And so you should always check on those, and go follow, subscribe to Martin's Minute as well on your podcast app. You should always go do that. Yeah, I'm going to talk about them, but we've had too many dumb bleeps of the week, and I don't want to do one on Monday as well. But we'll talk about people deciding to use Jesus to say that Elon Musk should not have all of this wealth. We'll see if there's any update on ICE killing a teacher. That's kind of a weird headline, right? I don't want ICE to kill a teacher. Turns out they were pursuing an illegal immigrant, trying to arrest someone, and they ran and that person caused an accident, killed a teacher. But ICE killed a teacher is the headline, basically. Number 10, we got to think about handouts as well, which we talked about a little bit on Wednesday. So for the actual voting for today, number 1, tariffs regulate equals the ability to levy taxes. I guess we'll do that. Number 2, glyphosate immunity. Number 3, all those dumb Democrat posts. There's a lot in there. We had AOC. We had Gavin Newsom being illiterate, dyslexic, I guess. We had Democrats, for some reason, deciding that they never call Trump racist or Hitler. I don't know what the plan is, but multiple times this is getting mentioned now, so I don't know if it's like a new thing. Number 4, the Seattle gig worker law that has backfired so far. Actually, people making a little bit less money. And by the way, also bad for the people as well. There's probably less production happening, less goods and services trading hands. Probably not as good for the businesses that are using those delivery apps, things like that. Not as good for the customers that are trying to get things delivered. So really dumb overall for number 4. Number 5, California and the Jones Act. Number 6, the DOJ and not wanting to release how much money they were paying Twitter to do censorship for them. I don't know why we still want to hide that, but we do for some reason. Number 7, the low IQs versus Thomas Massie, congressman from the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So, all right, everyone go get your votes in. This is where Charlie always tells everyone what to do. And what you need to do is go to GodHatesFeds.com. Get yourself a God Hates Feds t-shirt. Go to joingml.com so you can join the Fed Haters Club. You can join our private Discord group. If you don't know what Discord is, it's like an app or a website or whatever it is where you can like make your own community. It's pretty cool, actually. So if you go to joingml.com, you're going to click a link and it's going to get you to open Discord. Discord, the app, is free, but of course, you do got to pay that tax of $7 a month to join our private Discord, and we greatly appreciate everyone who is supporting the show. Hit like and follow or subscribe on YouTube. Is it follow or subscribe? I think it's subscribe on YouTube, yeah. And hit like and ring the bell and comment something. The more belligerent the comment, the better. It's just the way the algorithms work, you know. Don't use any keywords or phrases that they're not going to want to show other people, but just, you know, just say whatever's on your mind. Anything you want to say that's on your mind, that'd be great. All right, let's get to the votes. Let's see who's winning right now. Okay, this is interesting. Currently, right now, we have a tie between number 3 and number 7. Low IQ versus Massie is number 7, and number 3, Dumb Democrats. I'm going to need everyone from the other ones to pull their votes so we can figure out which one of these things is, in fact, the dumbest. Just go do it. You got about 5 seconds, and right now, Dumb Democrats is winning. Okay. Dumb Democrats is winning right now. Okay, cool. You guys are jerks. That's what's happening. Going once. Sorry, I just meant that because all of a sudden it was tied again. Going once, going twice, 3 times. It's sold. Low IQs versus Massie. I didn't actually think that was going to win. We've done so many Massie conversations lately, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised by that, but thank you. I appreciate everyone's votes.